All right. Well, it is a leap of faith in so many ways to access this level of, what shall we say, vibration. So, right, nice to see everyone. Now we're going to start out by throwing out a little dynamic of our straw poll. Would it serve you? Would you wish to participate in a dynamic of regularly getting together with us in this sort of way in order to just discuss the dynamics of energy that are coming up for you all? In other words, the basic truths of the way things are operating are not written in stone, but written in energy,
Hmm.
are written in a dynamic of templates that, unless you are maintaining a certain level of conscious awareness, that you follow them. They're always tailored basically to yourself, but they are also a dynamic of energy where you are not being required to, what shall we say, pay full attention. And if you will notice everything, especially in the past year, has gotten to the point where you are seemingly paying attention a lot greater percentage of your day than you ever had before. And that is basically because of the dynamics that are going on internally within each and every person, within each and every human, upon, what shall we say? Shall it be just planet Earth, or shall it be within the dynamics of a certain frequency limitation?
Hmm.
In other words, where does the idea of God got us all that is come in, and where does the aliens come in to that whole picture? Is there a dynamic that within the dynamic of religiosity that allows for the dynamic of alien species on other worlds? Do they have their own beliefs that they developed? And so, therefore, within their sphere of energy, within their sphere of frequency, they have developed divine beings of their own that fit in more with the dynamics of what their reality is. And how does one interaction inter interpose with another? And is that not in so many ways? Now, if you take that dynamic out of that context, you're going to throw a monkey wrench into the whole works. You take it out of that context, and instead of making it earthlings and aliens, make it masculine and feminine, men and women. Now you realize the depth of the difficulty of the problems that you're dealing with in your world.
Are you suggesting that?
Because we are suggesting that this is no more at the bottom of it than a dynamic of the masculine and the feminine growing up to the point where they can move to forgiveness, and beyond that dynamic of forgiveness, maybe get your shit together? And we're saying maybe.
Well, there were several things you just did there.
Yes, there was, wasn't there?
One, you asked a question about whether people would find any
Well, but
interest.
then we had to frame it, didn't
But
we?
then you talked about you made an alignment between the interaction between an alien understanding of spirit
We're just creating a metaphor.
and an earth-based, and that might be you might see a correspondence between that and masculine and feminine
Well,
as
but
we
in
have
fact, we're
developed them.
talking, instead of talking about any of those things, what we're talking about is the depth of the dynamics of difficulty, not difficulty, but, this is the thing. This is the thing. This is the ultimate dynamic, dear ones. We're getting right down to it. It's going to be forgiveness, but forgiveness of yourselves. Forgiveness of when you can get to the point where you can look at your life with all of its difficulties and and especially with the realization, because the more you move into this area, the more understanding that you have is that you chose this reality, even if you have not been able to figure out why yet. You chose this, especially since you all have not been aware of the greater dynamic until this lifetime. In other words, you are achieving levels of conscious awareness where you are even questioning the dynamics of spiritual status quo. And in that questioning, you realize there is so much more.
Okay, that's been an evolving process for myself and Josh,
For everyone,
but I'm seeing
for
it
everyone, for
reflected.
everyone. But it's also a point right now where energetically you're reaching a bottleneck. If you look at your world, the reflection from the outside world has not been as concentrated, as intense as it is getting. Trying to tell you all, what's the two words of the year:
Objectivity and discernment.
objectivity and discernment. Well, but again, it's like you have to keep reminding yourselves of these things because it's so easy to get sucked in emotionally.
And so once we get sucked in emotionally, might be following templates that we haven't
You
yet.
do, you do. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people here. You had 5 different responses to the demonstrations that were going on in the US yesterday. You each had a different response.
Mhm. Well, I'm assuming that that's the case.
Because energetically, and here's the real key, dear ones. If you wish to be a revolutionary, everything that you do should be directed toward unity. Should be directed toward the dynamic of healing the rifts, of to use an old expression,
Right.
but of being able to be willing to forgive yourself and the others.